It is good to see further evidence of the serious momentum in the economy.
Question number 4, the Honourable Amy Adams.
My question is to the Minister of Finance. Does he stand by all of the statements and actions of the government in relation to his portfolio?
The Honourable Grant Robertson.
Mr Speaker, yes. Insofar as my powers as the Minister of Finance can extend, including my powers of comprehension, Mr Jones.
Did he agree, as the Minister of Finance, to change the Kiwi Build policy so that buyers will now be immediately entitled to keep 70% of the profit they make from the sale of the house?
Mr Speaker, I was part of the decision-making process that contractually obliges Kiwi Build owners to retain ownership of their home for at least 3 years.
Did he consult with the Prime Minister before agreeing to allow Kiwi Build owners to sell the properties immediately and retain 70% of any capital gain?
Mr Speaker, as was stated yesterday by Minister Twyford, delegated powers for that decision were given to Minister Twyford, myself and Minister Jones.
Point of order, Mr.
Yeah. Please answer the question.
Consultation was not required, Mr Speaker.
And it still doesn't answer the question. Well, the question was, did the member, not whether it was required, but whether the Minister did consult.
Mr Speaker, no, because it was not required.
Thank you.
Why did he, as Minister of Finance, decide that somebody who wins the right to buy a Kiwi Build house from the ballot should be allowed to sell that house for potentially a large profit the next day and still retain 70% of that profit?
Mr Speaker, the decision was made because in the circumstances that we're facing at the moment, those people would have signed a covenant saying that they won't sell it. This was the practical way of dealing with those who would break that covenant. As the Prime Minister said yesterday, that can be revisited if that turns out to be a situation that occurs regularly.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
If, as the opposition has argued, that these houses are overpriced, what's the likelihood of someone making a massive profit the next day?
Mr Speaker, that is indeed a very, very good point, that the opportunity here for a giant windfall gain appears to be relatively slim. I'd also say, Mr Speaker, that it is quite interesting hearing what appears now to be a call from the opposition for a 100% capital gains tax.
Well, if the Kiwi Build properties are properties that were being built anyway and have just been bought off the plan, and they're sold at full market price so that no immediate capital gain is made, then exactly what are taxpayers getting for their $2 billion?
Mr Speaker, I reject the premise of the first part of the member's question. In answer to the second part of the member's question, what New Zealand taxpayers are finally getting are affordable homes for first home buyers, sadly missing for the last 9 years.
Does the Minister still think he made the right decision to change the policy when the Prime Minister said yesterday that the government would be reviewing the policy if even a small number of owners took advantage of the change that he signed off?
Speaker, as always, I respect and agree with the Prime Minister's views.
Question number 6, Anahira Kanongataha Suisuiki.
Kia ora te mana whakawa. He pātai ki te Minita Housing and Urban Development. What interest, if any...
I apologise. I have skipped Ms Collins' question.
Get me, Mr Speaker.
I think, like many others, I find it impossible.
But,
question number 5, the Honourable Judith Collins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of